Goedemorgen allemaal en welkom in Amsterdam. Good morning all. Welcome in Amsterdam, Netherlands. It's great to actually be here after 18 months. It was 18 months ago when we would actually be here in Amsterdam, coming together. And well, we all know what happened, so it's really exciting that we can actually still be here and come together, have meetings, workshops, presentations. My name is Koen de Jong. I'm an advisor at Innovalor, one of the co-founders of MyData and active in the MyData Hub. I'm really happy to be able to invite you all here in Amsterdam and also to see so many familiar faces that I've only seen through screens over the past few years. Let me first, before we start, say a few thank yous, because this event would not have been possible without the help of many people and organizations. So it's my colleagues from Innovalor who helped me, who helped us together to organize this, but of course also City of Amsterdam, Volksbank, Fujitsu, Open Future, Octo, SCDN, and the Vastu Group. Later today, I will tell you a bit more about the personal data management landscape in the Netherlands. Maybe first also good to mention there is streaming going on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/c/MyData Global, where you can also watch all presentations of today and hopefully some of tomorrow. Before I will continue on the Dutch PDM landscape, I would now like to invite Teemu on behalf of MyData Global, who will do the rest of the introduction.
Thank you, Koen. Good morning, everybody, whether you're online or physically here in Amsterdam. My name is Teemu Ropponen. I work as the General Manager of MyData Global. And yes, in great partnership with the Netherlands Hub and Innovalor, we have, and with the support of our great partners, we've been able to come back, recover from the slump a little bit, and get together again. It's amazing. We have 200 plus people who have actually registered, it will be exciting days. It feels a little bit nervous, doesn't it, being at a hybrid event, being physically and online, where pulse is racing at something like 220 BPM right now. We'll be fine. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. This was the situation. Some of you may remember this statement. Sorry for the language. It was the former president of Estonia, not myself, what the situation is like. And this was what happened in the March 2020 time when we were supposed to be here, and we had to cancel that at the very last minute. It was still great online community meeting then, and of course now things looked really dire, and we're so happy to be here right now. So with the latest news also, especially here in the Netherlands, we of course exercise caution and realize that, well, we're not out of it yet. The situation does suck in many ways, but let's make the most out of it. Now, before we get to the kind of MyData content, so to speak, and to Koen's presentation on the Dutch personal data landscape, just have a couple of things. Firstly about you, then about us and how we're going to have a successful following 2 days, and then just a couple words about MyData for those who are not necessarily so familiar with us. So, can we go to Menti, and Ansku will help me out in looking at it, looking at the results. Let's see who is actually here. What kind of faces do we have? Take a few minutes. Take your favorite browser, maybe a privacy-aware one. So, how familiar are you with
Can you go back to the code? Yes.
It's on top of the screen.
Thank you.
Yes. Where are you joining us from? All right, London, Finland, I think those are France, Sweden. Welcome to the ones arriving. We expect people to flow in and out all throughout the day. Okay, Sweden is well represented. That's good. 13 answers. Come on, we're gonna need a little bit more than that. Let's go for 30. Okay, we have Tokyo here. Good. We're not only European either. Couch. If you identify with your couch, that's good, and that's a sign of the times. New forms of identity, perhaps, or. All right, we're good. We're at 24. So people coming from all over, and let's see what kind of numbers we come up with. And yeah, how familiar are you with MyData? And this is always interesting. These community meetings often have been a gathering of people who have been around, but it's always really nice to get new people coming in, and I see already in the crowd some people who have recently become members of MyData Global, for example. So that's great. All right, so we have a lot of active contributors. Oh, look at this scale. It's a little bit different. 5 different questions, right? You really threw a curveball at your host on interpreting the statistics. Well done.
Hopefully the question was not done like late in the night.
Yes, maybe we can see that the question and the scale was conceived not too long before the event. All right, well, we have active contributors, we have newbies here, we have people who follow us around a little bit. Those who are physically here, we've asked you to color code your signs a little bit, just so we also know when we have a little bit of networking and chance to discuss with each other, we kind of have a sense of what kind of conversations to perhaps start from. And again, regardless of whether you've been around for some time or are new, very much welcome to the scene. All right, Ansku, maybe that's it for Menti for now. Thank you for getting us going. All right, so how do we make most of it? Well, this is one thing, of course. We want to have an engaging 2 days, lots of workshops, lots of time to dive deep into sessions. We use or are inspired by the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra and their guiding principles for constructive dialogue. Just 5 key things there, just making sure that let's listen to each other. For sure, we have a lot to say, let's listen to others. And let's relate to what others have said and use everyday language. When we don't understand something, ask questions. Talk about our own experience, not about what we've heard or whatever. Our own experience, that helps improve the quality. Let's be present And sure, some things may be confidential. Generally speaking, this is meant to be a very open dialogue, and things should be in the public domain. Please just be very clear if there are things in confidence, and make sure people know that. And yeah, it's good to seek out some tensions. For sure, there will be some regarding some of the tough topics, for example, data monetization and such. But again, let's seek to understand these tensions, seek to understand before we're understood. For sure, there will be some wrinkles. We're still learning in the business of learning how to do hybrid events. For sure, there will be some funny moments. Have patience and relax. And regarding the code of conduct, I just want to highlight that of course in any community, people engaging, we come from different backgrounds, different attitudes, different behaviors. Let's be sure we act respectfully. And specifically, just want to state out the harmful behavior that we, of course, will not want to see. Any kind of violence or threats of violence, any type of attacks on people or the organizations they represent, even organizations we might not appreciate very much, let's not attack them. Certainly not want to spread false information or use any kind of derogatory language. And yes, of course, physical contact as a whole, we should be limiting that, but specifically then no unwelcome sexual attention or disruptive behavior for that matter. These are defined a little bit detail in our code of conduct. Just reminding for that. That way we can have an experience that we will enjoy, whether we're online or physically here. All the workshops have their own separate links, so it's on the website. It should be in your emails. We're working on the Zoom space, and you all should have gotten information about that. Please ask if you cannot find something. And yes, let's be sure that we are communicating about this. I mean, there are amazing events, amazing workshops, really interesting topics, and of course later on this afternoon the MyData Awards. Let's be sure to be proud about the community, about what we stand for, and actively get us trending. Make sure that we are seen also in the eyes of those who might not be here able to participate. You've probably seen the program. I'll not walk through every single bit of it. Just noting that there will be some hassle here. We will be closing the doors or turning this space into 2 rooms at some points during the breaks. We have had to, unfortunately, postpone the Facebook-related session tomorrow to a later time. We will have a networking walk outside that was suggested by somebody, and we kind of tested it out last evening. It was great, also to catch some fresh air. But that's tomorrow. But today we again hear from Innovalor. And Koen in just a bit. Then we dive into the workshops, two sets of parallel sessions with lunch break in between. We then hear from the city of Helsinki, who has been very active in the MyData space, as many of you know. And then in the afternoon we start with or continue, I should say, with the MyData Operators 2021 awards, and they're having keynotes, the awarding, and some fireside chat discussions, and then have a little bit of time for social and networking. We know, of course, that with the restrictions in place, we need to be a little bit careful, but enjoy the time that we have. That's for the program. For those new to MyData, just very, very quickly, the core idea of MyData is that people, ourselves, we should have the agency, the tools and means to control data that's gathered about ourselves. And it's a matter, we know, of at the same time human rights, digital rights, fundamental rights, and at the same time we know that personal data needs to be or should be used, should be shared to create all kinds of innovative digital services. We see that MyData and the human-centric approach to personal data is a means to reach a fair, sustainable, and prosperous digital society. And in this society, people get value from their data. People have a right to set the agenda on that, how that data is used. And then for organizations, the ethical use of data is the most attractive option. And some years ago, as many of you know, we wrote the MyData Declaration, and kind of three fundamental shifts in that. The shift from formal rights to actionable or one-click or real-time rights. The shift from data protection to data empowerment, meaning that instead of just protecting people, combining, using data can be good for us. And thirdly, moving from closed to open ecosystems, making sure that we can really have a freedom of choice and take our data along. In very short summary, we have the declaration in over 10 languages, and we, as a matter of fact, have also the Dutch version. Hopefully we can get it out, perhaps even during the course of these couple of days, and I will not dive deeper into that right now. Right now, the topic of MyData is very relevant on different levels. Here we have interesting sessions on cities. We will hear from Helsinki, we will hear from Amsterdam. We have a couple of sessions on using personal data to improve services in the city, smart city services. MyData is relevant on national levels, lots of interesting initiatives. I know there are some in the Netherlands, which we will hear about. It's certainly there, not only in European countries, but for example, recently in Korea, for example, which is a very active part of MyData. Interesting things happening there. Japan, and all over the world for that matter. And then of course in Europe, lots of interesting regulation development happening right now, in particular the one that many of you know that MyData has been involved in a lot is the Data Governance Act, but there are other relevant regulations as well. And as one highlight, of course, for us that MyData was in the European Data Strategy, which sets out the pathway to this other regulation and to various funding programs and so on. And the human-centric approach to personal data is quite well represented there. We're doing together a great job in that sense also. It's on the agenda. About MyData Global, for those who do not know, it's an international non-profit. Actually, just 3 years ago, almost to the day, on the 15th, we finalized our founding meeting, which in essence lasted over a month. Had the first community meeting, so we are celebrating 3 years also here in Amsterdam. 2 years ago, we were in Athens celebrating the first year. But our history goes back further than that with the MyData conferences. How many of you have been at one of the MyData conferences that have been organized since 2016? Okay, and I see some people online with their hands up. Great. So some of you might have been involved for many years. And right now, working globally, not only in Europe, and having various interesting thematic groups, some of which are represented here today. The hubs, Koen and Innovalor, and not just Koen and the team, Marlies and Will and Ruud and others, coordinating the Netherlands hub together with other organizations and people. That's one of 30, so 30 hubs all around the world. And if there is somebody here watching or here present who'd like to start a hub, you are more than welcome to to talk with us, and let's get some new hubs, new spots on the map as well. We are a networking organization, or an organization that brings together individuals and organizations right now from over 50 countries, about 100 organizations, about 400 people. And I thank those who have joined, especially those who have joined just recently. Here you see just on the slides a few, or those organization members, and you will for sure recognize a few. Some of these are partnering, some are organizing workshops, some will be awarded later today. We exist thanks to the members, individual and organizational. And actually why we are members of MyData Global, why we are here, basically 6 essential reasons. We want to connect the global community. We want to accelerate our co-learning, create knowledge together, build partnerships. We're here to form new alliances, new consortia, new partnerships. Want to build trustworthy and interoperable products. Strengthen the brand of the organizations who do act ethically, who do use personal data in a human-centric way. And of course, we also want to shape the regulation in a way that moves towards human centricity and giving control to people over their data. So I hope that some of you will enjoy today, will enjoy tomorrow. One of my favorite pictures from Helsinki, where Sille is raising her hand up with our fantastic hub leaders, and I hope that many of you will have this feeling when participating, but also hopefully becoming a member and thus contributing, making us stronger. So with that, I'd just like to thank and close the start. I hope we're roughly on time.
We still have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes. All right. Well, that's good. Then we can perhaps see if there are any questions or thoughts, remarks before we let Koen go. Does anybody have a thought or a question here? And be happy to hear some thoughts and introductions. Let me just get you a mic. The MyData conference, is that right? Sorry, I was just... Yes, I think it's working for the stream. So we will have the MyData conference next year. It's planned for June. It will be in Helsinki. The exact dates we're still figuring out depending on the venue. We will have a physical gathering again next year, and it will be nice summertime. It will not be rainy. It will be sunny, wonderful. The sun will never go down, and you will enjoy it.
Sounds like a promise.
No, I welcome you to Finland next year. Thanks for the question. Victor, do we have something on the stream? What kind of thoughts from there?
Just one about the social plans and networking. What's happening with the social plans and networking is the only question. I'm not sure how people will be able to participate in that.
Social plans and networking. Yes, for the social, for the people in the coming online, the key thing that I suggest is if you are not on the MyData Global Slack, is to find your way there. So mydata.org/Slack. and join the community meeting channel there. Of course, also, like mentioned, actively on Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever are your favorite social media platforms. Most of the facilitated networking is happening in the program itself. So we just advise people to, of course, network and make use of the connections, connect via the various channels. No other facilitated online networking. Thank you for the question. Okay. If we have no further questions or comments, then I suppose we can take a small break just to no.
Switching, yeah.
All right, I've just, for the sake of the logistics, it's apparently easier. We have a little bit more leeway to arrange. I hope nobody's joining at 10 o'clock to hear Koen, because I know that Koen's presentation is going to be wonderful, but they will need to rewind a little bit if you are joining. So with that, maybe I will pass it back to you, Koen.
Yeah, great.
Why don't you tell us about the Dutch lively personal data ecosystem?
Yeah, so thank you, Teemu. So I hope this presentation works with Google. So let's see. So welcome once again. My name is Koen de Jong, and I will talk about the personal data management landscape in the Netherlands. So I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that's happening, because that's just too much and we could take whole day. So I just picked out some nice stuff that I want to tell you about. So let's first talk about Innovalor. Innovalor is one of the founding members of MyData, as many of you know. And we're a specialized IT consultancy company in the eastern part of the Netherlands, or as Marlies would like to call us, the wise from the east, to get a bit in the Christmas spirit already. So we're based over here, and this is Dixon, where you have to pay attention, because now you know that we're not in Amsterdam. So we're over here. So we've been working on personal data management for, well, over 15 years. My colleague Will, who will be joining later today, was involved with the first versions of the Dutch MyGovernment.nl, and we've been doing projects, well, ever since. So also maybe good to mention, if anybody thinks like Heineken is the best Dutch beer, it's not. The best beer is brewed in Enschede. It's Gros. And we have these really cool swing top bottles. So if you get to another pub where they have decent beer and not Gros on the tap, then just get one of these. So about myself, I'm an advisor focusing on personal data management and digital identities. I've done multiple projects over the last 2 years on these topics. For example, regie op gegevens landscape analysis, so which personal data management solutions are there in the Netherlands. We've done that last year, and that's basically also the starting point of this presentation. Been involved with the Blauwe Knop UX design, involved in EIDAS peer reviews process, and that's also why I'm quite aware of the new EIDAS regulation, which is also focusing on self-sovereign identity and wallets. Besides my work at Innovalor, I'm also involved within the MyData community as a group leader and reviewer for the MyData operators group. So that's about me. Let's see. Yeah. So to give you a bit of an idea of how much is happening in the Netherlands, here are some of the Dutch initiatives that we put together last year. And recently, our colleagues from, this slide got lost, doesn't matter. Anyway, I think a lot of these are also here with us today, also here in Amsterdam physically, so that's great. So, what I will talk about today, first I will give a bit more introduction on like the operator work, so that you all know what I'm talking about. And I know for the people who have been coming here longer, this is not going to be the interesting part for you. But for the people who are new, I think this is good to get up to speed. And then a bit about some highlights from the Dutch landscape, and I'll end with some conclusions and future challenges. So, human-centric personal data management. So what are we talking about? I mean, this is the big thing for the last 2 years. So if I'm talking about personal data management and talking about operators, you can think of personal data management, or in Dutch, your persoonlijke digitale omgeving, personal data wallets, self-sovereign identity, or in the Netherlands, when we're focusing on health, persoonlijke gezondheidsomgeving, or more in general, regie op gegevens, as the Dutch program by Ministry of Interior is called. So, let's get into the MyData roles then. So, when we're talking about personal data management, well, usually we see multiple roles, and I say roles because it also means that one organization can be multiple, or even a person can be an operator himself. So first we have the data sources. I mean, this all makes sense. Then we talk about data using services. So these are the parties that wish to use the data. So if you're from the identity world, you would probably call this a relying party. And nowadays, these don't connect at all, or if they connect, the person, the individual, is not in control. So this is where we see the operator coming in. And the operator is the one who provides infrastructure, tools, the so-called wallets to the individual to give him the control over the data, to access data from the data source, and to share it with the data using service, but only if he wishes to do so, and only under his control. So, and what we're all working here within the MyData community is working towards a more mature ecosystem. So this means that any operator an operator can connect to any data source and then share it with any data using service, and the individual can choose any operator he likes to do so. Well, that's still a challenge we face today. And I hope we're going to have some nice discussions on how to achieve this during the upcoming 2 days. So I think that's enough of an introduction on the MyData roles. Let's go to the Dutch landscape. So, well, the Dutch landscape goes back like, well, 15 years approximately. So here we have introduction of the European Europass, the My Government page. And in 2007 already, we had the Key Foundation, who will be presenting tomorrow. They were founded already back then. We're already thinking about how can we give the individual the control over the data and do data exchange in the right way. And then it got a bit more quiet. But for the last 5 years or so, well, a lot of initiatives are standing up within the Netherlands. And well, this was from our report last year, so probably there are some missing here as well. Well, I'm actually sure, because Data Keeper should be somewhere here, for example. So, let's talk about the operators in the Netherlands. There are many, and there are many different ones. So, for example, we have more generic operators, the can do everything operators, such as Irma, Data Keeper, Schloes. We also have more specialized ones, like Octo, who is especially focusing on financial industry. So this also influences the use cases and sectors they're active in. And besides that, there are also many different levels of maturity. So I think within the Netherlands, people often talk about Irma because, well, right now I think they're just the biggest one with most money, getting the most being able to draw the most attention. But we also have smaller ones who are still more in pilots, doing pilots, even though there are already, the apps are already out there. So I think Schloes, for example, is one of the ones that is, well, they're becoming bigger every year, so that's really exciting. Yeah, so, but then if we go to step away from the operators, the data wallets, there's so much more happening. So local government, for example, is very active within the field of personal data management. And this makes sense, right? Because they are the ones who actually feel the pain. So they actually have to help the people who are in problems because they have financial troubles, because they need social services or social security from the government. And that's also where they work together with apps like Buddy and Fix, who can help you when you need debt counseling, for example. And there's actually already quite mature solutions to help these people. On the other hand, local government also are working together on giving back control to people. And this they are doing, for example, by a project which is called Blauwe Knop, the blue button. So for those who are American, we kind of stole this idea from you. But we did it a bit differently. So this will help you to download your data from any government website. And well, this basically has been a research project over the last 3 years. And there are some live examples, for example, at RVO. But it's very limited, and they're now rounding up. And I'm really curious to see how many government organizations are actually going to use this. On the other hand, there are also many governance initiatives. So I already mentioned Key. Key is a trust framework, and they were already founded back 2007. And well, then they were too early. They're going to tell all about this tomorrow. So they kind of failed, basically, because people were just not ready. Even the EU told them, what you're doing is great, but you're too early. So they failed, but also they just continued, and then they were nominated for the Institute of Brilliant Failures. And this is what they're going to talk about tomorrow, how to fix this thing that is genius but is not working. So how can we fix it to make it better and actually get profit from it? Also, the Dutch Ministry of Health has been very active with MedMij, which is also a trust framework. And well, actually, they put a lot of money in it to set this up. So this is actually working, and there are more than 20 operators, persoonlijke gezondheidsomgevingen, personal health environments, where you can access your data from hospitals, etc., and then get value out of this. And this is usually for specific diseases. They have specific healthcare environments. Right now, this still every PGO still gets subsidy from the government to actually be able to keep these things running. So I think this will end when we get a new government, and then we will just have to see if they gained enough momentum to actually keep this going. But this is a great example of how, if the government really puts its shoulders on it, underneath it, that it can actually work. So, of course, the national government is also doing things, and they're mainly doing this in, well, I know there are other initiatives like virtual ID, digital source identity kind of stuff, but I guess if we're looking at personal data management specific, the main thing is regie op gegevens. So control over your own data. And over the last government, so for the last 4 or 5 years, they've been doing a lot of research. And I think, Paul, who has been the program lead for the last few years, also actually wanted to be here. Sadly, he could not come due to, COVID regulations. So he wishes us the best of luck for the coming few days. And he's been actually doing a lot of research on this topic. On the other hand, we also see that like there are coming things out of these research, and this is going up higher into the government. And this is where decisions need to be made. And this is also where it gets tricky because, yeah, then you got to take responsibility. And, well, I don't know if they're ready for that yet. So they promised us, like, solutions for everybody by now, and they're not here yet. So let's hope for the next cabinet to actually get these things running. But otherwise, let's hope for the EU that will also work. Of course, I already told you, I can talk for the rest of the day about the Dutch landscape. There is way more. So, of course, there is the Dutch MyData Hub, where we've been, well, a lot of the Dutch people I'm seeing here have been coming together. There are initiatives in the mortgage sector where they like try to get away from handing in all those papers like 4 or 5 times and just being able to do it once digitally in a proper way. CV has an overview of the personal data management landscape. The blockchain coalition is doing some work on SSI, and there are many more communities and initiatives. So, to give you an overview on 2 slides of what's happening in the Netherlands. First of all, as I already mentioned, the government is doing a lot of research, but they kind of fail to make the real decisions, and in particular, the national government could take a few more steps here. There are many Dutch operators and other initiatives, but number of use cases are kind of limited and very specific usually. And there's also this lack of standardization and cohesion. So this is also where we're working together as MyData operators, of course, to make these kind of things happen so that you can choose any operator you like and do whatever you want. And well, all these things come together in, well, I think one of the biggest problems that the individual is not actually in control yet. Because right now the data using service still decides which wallet I need to use if I want to use a wallet. Otherwise, I'll just have to hand in a bunch of paper and do it the old school way. And why is that? Well, in general, the market is not mature yet. Valuable data sources are still hard to access. So I think, for example, if we're looking at Dutch government, has a lot of valuable information about me. But what the Dutch operators are doing is screen scraping because there's no alternative. We still struggle with sustainable business models. So this is what Marlies and Lotte will talk about during their workshop this afternoon. Trust within the ecosystem is hard to realize. So this is where we also need like government and legislation. Also maybe for standardization, interoperability. But I think the most important one, we need to work towards a landscape where there is actually a real choice for the individual. And I don't know if it's going to happen from the Netherlands, but if not, the EU might be a game changer here. They've done great work over the last year announcing the Data Governance Act and also the EIDAS wallets, where I think a lot of the operators are also actively looking into at least for the Dutch landscape. I know Irma is very interested, Data Keeper as well. And I think this will also be part of your workshop, right? Yes, good. So we'll also talk about this in the next workshops. So a lot of exciting developments basically. So let's make it happen. Thank you. Any questions? I think there's still a microphone, right? Yeah. Yeah, Isabella. I'll just get you a microphone so that people online can also hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for a nice presentation. And one of the things is that what we keep saying is that, hearing is that at the end of the day, citizens do not care about their data. They just, most of them, Mr. Everybody in the street, do not care about it. And everything that we are doing here, I think it's all beautiful and nice, but who cares? So I think it's very important that it change, and there's a mindset change. Based on everything that you have done in the Netherlands, and I know Netherlands is in general quite more forward-thinking, do you see something changing in the Dutch citizen with all those different projects in the mindset, and they think that data is a true asset, like the cash is an asset and they should manage it?
Yeah, I think I'll just get back to the proper spot. So yeah, I think this is a valid point, and I mean this will always be hard, but yes, there are things changing, but I also think there's something that we can do here as well. So it's about ease of use. That's part of why people are on Facebook, because it's so easy to use. And well, I know a lot of operators are very technical of mind, and sometimes we forget that it's not only about the technical solution, but also about the ease of use. And I think that, for example, the workshop that Marie-José and Peter and Datakeeper, I think Octo Journey, I think there's one more, right? Or it's just 3 of you? Irma. So, yeah, right. So Irma will be giving, that's facing towards that problem that we also need to tackle. So yeah, I think this is a valid point. I think it's changing a bit, but we also need work from our side. Any other questions? Maybe also from the online audience. Victor? No? Okay. Yeah, okay. Way in the back, over there.
Hi, thank you. Can you tell us a bit more about the Foundation for Commons that you mentioned and what they do exactly?
Sorry, the key foundation.
Give and something.
Like, let's see, this one?
No, after this one.
Yeah. So this was announced with our last government. It's called. Yeah, as I mentioned, the regie op gegevens. So the goal was actually to give the individual more control over data the government owns about us. And I mean, this is a hard thing because you cannot actually own this data, but it is about you, so you should be in control. And they've been doing like a lot of research and also discussions on should we actually make this data the government has about you and me, should they make this available? So should there be like a proper login link and then an API so that I can actually put it into my Irma or my Sluice or my Octo Datakeeper, whatever. But mainly what they in the end did was just researching, well, what does the Dutch personal data management landscape look like? What do people actually want? And I think like all conclusions were, yes, this is something we need to do, but that is as far as we got for now, at least. Any other questions? Otherwise, oh, here at the front from Peter.
Yeah, maybe to elaborate on that, do you have any thoughts how we can activate our governments? Probably this is a problem with every government, how to open up, how to get more control about your data. What are the steps in that? Is that legislation that is in the way? Is it the EU that's now more pushing this? What are your thoughts about that?
I've put my hope on the EU for now. I think like the people who are actually in this program, they're doing great work. But I think in the higher level government, it's just like with people not caring. Well, they do care about their data, but not acting on it. I think some people in the higher level government just don't understand these challenges. So if you want to change these kind of things, that's like the place where we need to get active, I think. Or maybe we need to get people in there who actually understand this kind of stuff.
There's a new law coming up, the WDO in Dutch, the legislation around your digital government.
Yeah.
Do you think that could be the trigger? Then it's legalized, and then things could be happening.
Well, I think so. The WTO, it's like the law on digital government, and it says something about access to government services in particular. So it's about bringing your own ID to the government and being able to access it. And then the next steps will be to also get the data out. But that's not something that's in the first part of the legislation. And this legislation was already drafted in 2017. And they've been shifting this each time for half a year. And last signals I heard is that they're not quite sure if it's actually going to happen, or that they're just going to wait for the new EIDAS regulation and just not do the WTO at all. So, yeah, I mean, like the legislations in the core, it's good, but like that's also an example where we face challenges actually getting it out. Victor, there's a question from the audience, I think, or the online audience.
Yeah, there's a question from...
Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, there's a question from Renko. He's wondering if there are any ideas on how to actually activate people to start caring about their own data.
Well, I think the work, yeah, I mean, if we had the answer to that, I don't think we would be here, of course. But yeah, I think things are changing due to Facebook scandals and that kind of stuff. But it's also, as I just mentioned, about making it more easy to get control over your own data. And that's where we'll be working on for the coming 2 days, I think. Yeah, so also question or remark from the other side?
Yeah, can I elaborate on that? Because that's one of the big questions in all communities, like open data communities, how you motivate the people. I think the most interesting question is how you motivate professionals and companies, the middle layer, before the citizens. Because I think it's utopian to say that you can motivate through a project or through legislation a citizen. A citizen is motivated with another real different way of motives, which is really complicated. It's psychological, it's everyday use, all this mass usage of social media, which is now it has matured. So I think the first thing to discuss is how companies like yours or others, bigger or smaller, will use MyData approach in order to provide services that they will motivate by doing citizens.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Thank you. So, maybe one last question before we get to coffee, or should we get coffee now? Coffee then. Good. Thank you all, and see you in... What time do we start again? Sorry.
We'll start as soon as we get the workshop spaces ready.
Okay.
So hopefully in 10 minutes.
So we'll be back in 10 to 15 minutes. We'll split the rooms here, and then we also get back to you online as well.
Tell the online participants that the workshop links are in the webpage.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if you still have them somewhere on screen, but maybe good for the online participants as well. There are different links for the workshops, so you can join them online as well. Just go to this page, mydata.org/Netherlands 2021 full program. And there you can find the links on how to join the online workshops as well. So, thank you, and let's have coffee.